I'm giving a speech in the next few days, and someone was asking about, where are we in all these states? So I'm going to run through. This is kind of my election day rundown, my crucial state election rundown, and then getting to the Georgia thing. So the crucial state election rundown. What I wanted to get to is this. You hear, and if you read things online, you hear all these different stories. There's testimony at one state, some hearing they have, and one witness says this, and then you hear some group out not affiliated with the Trump campaign, and also not the Sidney Powell team, but other groups filing lawsuits. You hear all these different stories running, and it just seems like it's a confusing mess, and we're still in the middle of it. So what I'm presenting is what we know today. But I'll tell you, the 6 states that are the most significant in play, it is Georgia, Pennsylvania, Arizona, Nevada, Wisconsin, and Michigan. Those are the states where Trump is winning. These are swing states. Trump has to win some or most or all of them to get victory. He's winning, and all of them shut down their counting in the middle of the night. Hordes of just, the drop happens, votes are dropped in, and as we talked about in the show before, in some cases, in numbers that are not humanly possible. They'll show a huge bump up of votes for Biden in a number that the machines could not possibly have processed. But I want to get to where we are. So all 6 of those states, all the 6 I just mentioned, have certified their elections for Biden. All 6. And so where we are, because we're only here in the early December, so December 14th, coming up a week from Monday, so it's coming up, but December 14th is the day the Electoral College meets. And that is the day when the Electoral College, the electors coming from the various states, will have to come together and decide through a vote, can they get to the number of 270? 270 Electoral College votes is a magic number, which means a person has won. Under the Electoral College process, the person has won the election. So you have these states now all certifying, and so then the litigation has started. I'm just going to run through some of the major pieces of litigation in each of these states. But I will tell you, the one overarching argument that I want to be sure we keep our eye on the ball is this. The Constitution, the U.S. Constitution, gives the states the authority to run the elections in their states. And that authority goes specifically and exactly in the Constitution to the legislatures of those states. The Constitution says the legislatures set the policies and rules about the elections held in their states. Many of the states where there is a huge problem, a suspicion of massive election fraud, not just the 6 I mentioned, but states around the country, you had last-minute changes by officials who were not legislative decisions, just officials deciding, given coronavirus and given the massive overreaction by our government to coronavirus and the massive claim that we had to have mail-in ballots in extraordinary numbers around this country to deal with coronavirus, you had officials in these states making decisions that change what the legislature said the law was. The legislature, for example, can set, and states set different things. What are the rules about mail-in ballots? Who's eligible for a mail-in ballot? I know in the great state of Texas, where I live, the mail-in ballots, I think they're offered. They're available to anyone over 65, or whatever the age is. And they're also available for people who are disabled. And maybe there are other categories. Every state makes their own set of laws. But in this concocted overreaction to the coronavirus that created the concocted unnecessary proposal for massive mail-in ballots. And when I talk about mail-in, I'm not talking about someone who's requested a ballot, who's sitting at home, an absentee ballot, who's saying, I can't come in to vote because I am disabled, because I am a certain age, or whatever my problem is. That's an absentee ballot. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the fraudulent, massive national undertaking by the Democrat Party to send out massive numbers of mail-in ballots to people who didn't request them. President Trump made allusion to it. So you have all these ballots floating around out there, and some of them going to people who not only who didn't request them, but already had voted or already planned to vote in person. So you have that factor, but you have the rules that were changed by governors, election commissioners in various states, election commissioners in counties. None of those rule changes allowing the mail-in ballots are permitted under the United States Constitution. The Constitution only says that the legislatures can make rules. And in Pennsylvania, there was an argument that even though the changes about mail-in ballots and all the procedures around this election was passed by the legislature, what the legislature passed in Pennsylvania was inconsistent with, not permitted by, the Pennsylvania state constitution. So that is an overarching issue lurking beneath the surface in many of these challenges. But now to get to those states very quickly, tell you where we are. So Georgia certified their election. They now have one group in Georgia, not the Sidney Powell group and not the president's lawyers. An outside group has now identified more than 50,000 illegal votes that were counted that shouldn't have been counted. They are filing litigation. They are saying those votes alone are enough to shift Georgia to the Trump win column. There was in fact, I think that was what President Trump was showing in the earlier clip we played. Georgia voting irregularities, curious case, 20,000 Biden vote surge. Just all of a sudden, $20,000 votes for Biden injected into the count all at once. At the same time, 1,000 votes taken away for Trump. No explanation. No, just that's what happened. And you have, of course, Attorney Sidney Powell has filed a lawsuit, and she is seeking the remedy, asking the state of Georgia to have the election results be decertified, because after the election day, every legislature has to certify their state's election results, and then the electors can go from that state to the Electoral College. She's seeking the remedy, both that the Georgia election results be decertified and that the votes be awarded to Trump. Turning to Pennsylvania. In Pennsylvania, they certified for Biden on November 24th. On November 27th, a large number of Republican members of the Pennsylvania House, these are state reps, Pennsylvania House, on Friday afternoon called for the withdrawal of the certification of this general election vote. They asked to have the certification withdrawn, and they urged Congress, these legislators who are Republican members of the Pennsylvania State House, urged Congress to declare the selection of presidential electors from the state to be in dispute. That was something Rich Higgins made reference to a moment ago. Congress can get involved if there appears to be a dispute as to the electors, and whether they are following their role under the Constitution. Okay, so then you have, and Sidney Powell has filed litigation in Pennsylvania. And you have attorney in Arizona. Governor Ducey certified just this past Monday, November 30th. There was one lawsuit. The judge rejected it. Sidney Powell's now filed a lawsuit for Arizona on behalf of Arizona's GOP electors, alleging Dominion software manipulation. So she's going into Arizona. The state GOP in Arizona have been very active, very strong, right in the fight. And Sidney Powell now bringing this litigation in Arizona, saying the Dominion software manipulation actually was wrong and should be thrown out. Okay, and so you have Nevada, which was certified for Biden on November 24th. The Trump campaign has filed a lawsuit asking a judge to overturn or annul Nevada's presidential election results. So Nevada's got that issue going on. And Wisconsin certified their election on November 30th. Trump team filed a lawsuit yesterday challenging the last-minute changes in election law that expanded mail-ins and eliminated safeguards against fraud. This is the issue I was just talking about, the overarching issue that, you can't have state officials changing election law. The legislature only gets to do that. That's the Trump team. And Sidney Powell has filed a lawsuit in Wisconsin to block the state from certifying results. Make something else clear. Even when the state certifies the election, there's still the next phase when the state the governor transmits the certification from the state to the Electoral College. That's a place in the process that Sidney Powell's team is saying they're going to court, asking a judge to at least delay, if not prevent, the governor from transmitting the votes, the certification from the state to the Electoral College. Last one I was going to mention was in Michigan, certified for Biden on November 23rd. And this was a place, you saw that great testimony just a couple of days ago, a brave young woman who worked for Dominion voting systems talked about, she testified under oath, she saw thousands of ballots were scanned through the machines numerous times. Like people seeing it's a Biden ballot or a stack of Biden votes, just scanning them over and over and over as they're getting counted, each time, again and again and again. This is a woman, she's got no, dog in this race, no horse in this race. She's just saying, I saw this happen. They were cheating. She said, massive fraud. And you had also the issue we talked about in Detroit, Wayne County. The canvassing board is made of 2 Democrats and 2 Republicans. The Republicans did not want to certify the Detroit outcome. There was it went back and forth. They first declined to certify, and then under great pressure and threats and harassment, the Republican Board of Canvasser, 2 people said, okay, we'll certify. Then they tried to take their certification back and say, I'm sorry, we're just being threatened. We only certify because we're being threatened and harassed. And it was ruled they can't do that. They're allowed to change their mind from no certification to, okay, yes, we concede, but they're not allowed to change their mind once they certify to say, no, we don't. So that's ongoing in Michigan, and Sidney Powell has a lawsuit there alleging Dominion computer fraud and illegal conduct by election workers. I get to all this, I could go through all litigation and the particular points I'm making, but I want to hit the subject of Georgia for just a moment before I do my final segment. We are at war in this country, internal war. We are watching an assault on the American Constitution, on the right of the American people to elect their president. We're looking at an assault on the very integrity of our election system. All of the fraud that has been exposed, the stories of ballots being piled in the middle of the night and tallied. We are watching a massive fraud happening right in front of our faces, and we're watching a stoic, silent, belligerent, unyielding Democrat media mob that just simply responds to any latest evidence of fraud by saying, can we talk about again who Biden ought to appoint to be his, UN delegate? I don't know. What do you think? Oh, what do you think? I think Joe Biden should. Acting like there's nothing going on over here. It's like them saying, ignore that noise over there. We're over here talking about, we're talking about, who Biden should appoint to all these positions. They're trying to ignore the outrageous conduct that has come to the surface and been exposed to the American people. They're trying to distract you from looking at it, from paying attention, from caring. They're ignoring it with the hope that if they keep talking about President-elect Biden and keep marching down that path, that all of the outrageous conduct exposed and the subject of litigation by Sidney Powell, Rudy Giuliani, and the president's team, other outside organizations, will be pushed to the side and ignored. People, the American people, have the right to know how the election came out. The people, and actually, as Rich Higgins asked earlier today, when all of those states stopped counting at the same time, somebody made that judgment call. Somebody said, whoa, we're about to lose the election here. Everybody stop. Whoever is there is a somebody or a cabal of somebodies who made that decision, we're gonna pile in all of these, we're gonna drop all of these ballots we've been saving up. We're going to commit the election fraud to start with. It has to do with the manipulation of voter tabulation software for the early votes. And we're going to push this thing through. And what those people, whatever cabal group it is, what they're saying to the American people is, we don't care who you want for president. We don't care how you voted. We don't care what the Constitution says. We don't care what policies you want. We are going to rule you, and you're going to put up with a Biden presidency. You're going to accept it. You're going to put up with it. This is what those people who are engaged in this level of election fraud are saying to you. We don't care if Trump won. We don't care about the American people. We don't care about the Constitution. We care about winning. And we're going to bulldoze you into silence and submission. I am so grateful for the bravery of people like Sidney Powell and Lin Wood, although we got some issues with him, but Lin Wood, Sidney Powell, all the attorneys pushing this. I'm so grateful because what they are putting before these courts, this is why we need, tremendous pressure is being put on these courts to just capitulate to the left, give them whatever they want, give them the Biden presidency, and they need to be hearing from the American people saying, no, we want you to look at this evidence. We want you to examine it. Yes, we are in a hyper-speed examination of these issues, but they must be looked at. The evidence is overwhelming. We cannot allow the left to bulldoze it. It's not just this election at stake. It's all future elections at stake. If this is not uncovered, if the wrongdoers of the data tabulation, manipulation software people are not caught, if Dominion is not thrown the heck out of this country, we'll never have a free and fair election again. I mentioned quickly in this segment, and we're about to wrap up here, but Georgia, we have this issue going on in Georgia with the two senators, the election being set now for January 5th, this odd circumstance. Both incumbent Republicans, senators in Georgia are Republican, both from the ballot. They're both heading to this date of January 5th for the runoff. Yesterday, in that press conference where Lin Wood spoke, as well as Sidney Powell, there was a lot of talk about the idea whether or not the people of Georgia, the Republican voters who clearly want a Republican majority in the U.S. Senate, whether they ought to vote on January 5th if they have to use the Dominion voting machines because they don't trust those machines. And, Georgia probably also went for President Trump, but they can't get the system in Georgia to examine the machines, to throw out the fraudulent votes, to figure out the real votes. So there's a big question, what should people in Georgia do? I'm going to tell you my answer. The people, the GOP voters, the people who want to vote for the Republican Senate candidates need to be pressuring the Georgia legislature to say, we want this vote to happen without Dominion voting systems. Do not tell me that there's not enough time, legislators, to come up with something else. We're here on December 3rd. The election is January 5th. We can, in 30 days, come up with some other system, paper ballots that are counted with half Democrat, half Republican poll watchers watching every single tabulation, every single count. It is that level of importance, and the Georgia legislature so far has been unwilling to budge. In fact, the Georgia Secretary of State has been pushing to try to clean the Dominion voting machines of the data from the previous fraudulent election so they can prepare them for use in this January election. The idea, though, I will say, I'm hearing some people say that the Republicans should refuse to vote on January 5th. People, that is like saying, I cut my foot, so I'm going to shoot myself in the foot. That could not be more stupid. If you're in Georgia, you pressure the daylights out of that legislature to give you a fair election by getting rid of the Dominion voting machines, get paper ballots set up. But if that doesn't happen, staying home ensures you'll have two Democrat senators from Georgia sitting there in Senate, giving the Senate a 50-50 balance. And if we possibly must be stuck with a Biden presidency through a stolen election, you're going to have complete tyrannical power in the hands of the Democrat Party in this country. You're going to have Biden and Harris in the White House, and Biden will be gone in 10 days in the basement, playing Scrabble, whatever he's going to be doing, because he's not going to be president. So you're going to have Harris, and you're going to have the White House controlled by the Democrats. The Senate, with a 50-50 tiebreaker, goes to the vice president, and the House, still controlled by Democrats, is a very dangerous place for America. So Georgia people, do not even think about staying home on January 5th. This whole line, I refuse to vote in a Republican for the Republicans until they fix the voting machine situation. Yes, they have to fix it. But if you give America a 50-50 Senate because you want to stay home and pout about the voting machines, not okay. Get out there and vote in Georgia. hopefully without the Dominion voting machines, but if you're stuck with them, then use them. You can't stay home. You just can't.